Hello there. In this video, we are going to solve linear equations in one variable. Before we solve linear equations, first let's define some terms. You're probably familiar with these terms already, but just to make sure that you have a clear understanding of these terms, so let's review. Variable. A variable in mathematics is a symbol that is used in place of a value. So basically, if you are um, finding the value of a number, you use any letter to represent that number. So it can be any letter. Um, Most of the time, they use the letter X or Y, but it can be any letter. An equation. An equation is a statement which tells us that one thing is equal to the other. So basically, an equation is that when you have an expression equal to another expression. So when you have the equal sign, you have an equation, and the equal sign serves like a wall that separates your equation into two sides, the left side and the right side. As you can see, when you have an equation, this should be balanced. That's what the equal sign is, that this left side, the weight of that is the same as the weight on the right side. These are examples of linear equations in one variable. So as you can see, you have the equal sign, and there's only one variable in your equation. There's only one variable. This one, there's only one x. This one, same thing. This one also, it's only x. Because when you have two variables, it will look like this. Say like you're going to have x plus y equals 7. This one is not one variable because, as you can see, you have two variables there. You have x and y. So that's not what we will be working on today. We'll be working on equations like this where there's only one variable in your equation. You can have variables on both sides, but it's going to be the same variable, like same letter. Okay? So, how do you solve linear equations? That's our next thing. So, usually they'll give you the instruction. It's going to look like this. Solve each equation. Then they will give you the equation. So, what does it mean to solve an equation? Well, to solve an equation, it's to find the value of the variable that will make the equal sign true. So first you figure out what's your variable. Let's say for example, this one here, x minus 8 equals 10. So your variable is x, right? So when you're trying to solve this equation, what you want to do is you want to isolate the variable. You want x to be by itself, right? Because if you have x equals, then that means that's the value of your x. That means you are solving the equation. Okay? Um, Sometimes equation is just so straightforward that you can actually use mental math. Like this one here. Say x minus 8 equals 10. So you're asking yourself, what number minus 8 would equal 10? And mentally you can do that. Hey, that's 18. 18 minus 8, that's equal to 10, right? So you can say, oh, x equals 18, right? But sometimes it can be complicated like this, like negative 3 times what number equals negative 45? Or it can be real more complicated like this. 4 times the quantity x plus 3 plus 7 equals negative 9. So you can't really do mental math over here. So today, what we're going to learn is how to solve an equation algebraically, meaning you want to apply um, mathematical steps to solve the equation. You're not going to do mental math. And it's very important to learn how to do that, because later on when you do higher level math, you will still be solving equations, but you definitely cannot use mental math. So you want to learn it the right way. Okay? So let's try to solve now one-step equation. So these are the steps in solving equations in one variable. These apply to any type of equation. It can be simple equation, it can be complicated. So always remember, when you're solving an equation, your goal is you want your variable to be by itself. So like for example, when you have negative 3x equals 45, at the end here you want x to be by itself, right? Or it can be very complicated like this: 3 times x minus 4 plus 7 equals 9 times x plus 2 minus, say, 5. It can be this complicated. You will still apply these same steps over here to figure out the value of x. So in the end, like here, you're going to have x equals. Okay, so we're going to have this on the side as we work through some problems. So let's do it. Okay, solving one-step equations. So we have our steps over here. So our first problem here, x minus 7 equals negative 10. Again, at the end, my goal is I want x to be by itself, because that's what solving equation is. I want to figure out the value of x that will make the equal sign true. So look at your equation. This is your equal sign, so that divides your equation into two sides, the left side and the right side. You want x to be by itself. Right now, you have x minus 7. So you're subtracting 7 from x. You want to get rid of that negative 7. How do you get rid of negative 7? Add 7 to both sides. So add 7 to both sides. Check it. Negative 7 plus 7, that's 0. That will cancel out, so that's gone. So on the left side, you only have x. And then you bring down the equal sign. And on the right side, you have negative 10 plus 7. So it's like you owe $10 and you paid $7 back, which means you still owe $3. So negative 3. So the value of x is negative 3. And you can always check your work. That's the nice thing about solving equations. You can check your work. So x equals negative 3. To check your work, you just plug in the value of x into your original equation and then simplify both sides. So x minus 7, does that equal negative 10? Well, x is negative 3, and then I'll bring down negative 7 equals negative 10. So negative 3 minus 7, that is negative 10. It's equal to negative 10. So that's a true statement. That means your answer is correct. Okay, so again, these are all one-step equations. You want x to be by itself. There will be one number that's on the same side as your variable. So what you want to do is you want that number to cancel out. And you do it by doing inverse operation. This one right here, you're doing your addition or subtraction. This is your one-step equation here. Okay, so let's see. This is x plus 9 equals negative 2. Right now, x is not by itself. 9 is on the same side. So you have to get rid of that 9. To get rid of that 9, you will do inverse operation. You're adding 9. To undo that, you will subtract 9 from both sides. So now you have on the left side, 9 minus 9, that's gone. That's 0. You still have x, bring down x. And then negative 2 minus 9, that is negative 11. So x equals negative 11. If you're still confused with this subtracting integers, go watch the video on subtracting integers. Okay, the next one. This one is a little bit different. It says negative x equals negative 10. what's that negative x? There's actually an invisible one there. That is negative 1 x equals negative 10. And remember, negative 1x, that means negative 1 times x, okay, equals 10. So negative 1 times x equals negative 10. So again, you want x to be by itself. You have to get rid of that negative 1. How do you get rid of negative 1? Well, you do inverse operation. Right now, you are multiplying negative 1 and x. So to get rid of negative 1, you will undo multiplication, in which case you will divide both sides by negative 1. So negative 1 divided by negative 1, that's just 1. And then you still have x, so bring down x. And then negative 10 divided by negative 1, that is 10. Positive 10. So the answer is x equals 10. So remember, when there's just a negative in front of your variable, that's actually negative 1 times x. Okay, moving on. Problem number 4, negative 3x. Remember, when there's no operation in between the coefficient and the variable, that's multiplication. This means negative 3 times x. If you want to get rid of negative 3, so you will have x by itself. You will divide both sides by negative 3 because I'm doing inverse operations. That's right, inverse operations. That's your best friend. So negative 3 divided by negative 3, that's just 1. And then you still have x. Negative 15 divided by negative 3. Well, you have signs here, so when you're dividing, same sign, that becomes positive. And then 15 divided by 3 is 5. So x equals positive 5. Then box it up. Box up your answer. Okay, this one. So this x, oh, this is a fraction. How do you do fractions? Well, figure out what's the operation between x and negative 6. This is x over negative 6. Remember this. X over negative 6, that's the same thing as x divided by negative 6. Okay, so that operation, that's actually division. So what's the inverse operation of division? You're right, multiplication. So if you want to get rid of negative 6, you have to multiply both sides by negative 6. Okay, so when you multiply these two, negative 6x divided by negative 6, the negative 6 divided by negative 6 will just become 1, and then you still have x over here. And then negative 4 times negative 6, well, you're multiplying integers with the same sign. Negative times a negative is a positive, and then 4 times 6 is 24. So x equals 24. All right. The last one. So this problem is similar to problem number 5. Again, don't be scared. X over 3, you can say, oh, that's a fraction. I don't know how to do fractions. X over 3, that's the same as x divided by 3. So the operation here is division. So if you want to get rid of 3, you just have to undo division. And the inverse operation of division is multiplication. You're right. So you multiply both sides by 3. Right there. So the 3 and the 3, that's 3 divided by 3. So that's 1. Then you still have x. And then negative 5 times 3. Negative times a positive, that's a negative. And then 5 times 3 is 15. So x equals 15. Okay, so these are problems wherein you only have to do one step to solve the equation or to isolate your variable. And to do that, all you have to do is to apply inverse operations. So figure out what's the operation between the variable and the number you're trying to get rid of, and then just undo that. Easy peasy, right? Just be careful with this. Don't be scared with fractions. That's just division. Okay? So I hope you find this video helpful.